What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back in the video. Today we're going over 5 players that I think you'll regret drafting if you take them at their current ADPs. First up, we have Courtland Sutton, currently the wide receiver 28 by ADP. I have him as wide receiver 34 right now, and even that spot I'm not really in love with. My biggest concern is just the targets. 135 targets last season. That was awesome, and because he was pretty efficient downfield, adds on 8 touchdowns, he finishes as a wide receiver 25 and half PPR points per game. Everything I talked about points per game in this video going to be half PPR. But Denver also had a pretty trash run game last season. They had no production whatsoever at the tight end position. That's why they threw for touchdowns at such a high rate, and why Sutton was the only player on the team with at least 505 receiving yards. Not a very high mark to hit. This offseason, they spent up for Harvey in the draft, and they signed Evan Ingram in free agency, likely to play the Joker role in their offense. These two moves are going to increase, number one, the rushing touchdown percentage on this team, and number two, greatly increase the total target competition, both of which very negative for Courtland Sutton. You also have Marvin Mims, a player that I was very high on as a rookie. Didn't really pan out in his rookie season, wasn't really utilized last season. I would not call it, he was the second, he was at 503 receiving yards last season. I wouldn't call it like a post-hype breakout because it wasn't even that much hype in his rookie season. He was probably like a 15th round pick, but doesn't do anything as a rookie. Starts to, end of last season, finally really get involved in the offense, really get going. Does he take a step forward? Sean Payton has talked glowingly about the rookie Pat Bryant, saying he sees a lot of Michael Thomas in him. Does he do something? It just feels like a setup where all the easy targets are going to Evan Ingram to Pat Bryant, where the running backs are finally trusted, or the running back, RJ Harvey, is finally trusted. And so the running back's going to score more as a combined unit, probably more than 8 total rushing touchdowns like they had last season, and can actually be leaned on in game, because that was another thing. Like, even when they got up, they still kind of threw the ball at a pretty high rate because they did not trust the running backs, and running backs weren't efficient. If they trust the ground game, the running backs can win games for them and keep leads for them. They're not going to have to throw the ball as much. If we can finally get downfield work going more consistently to Marvin Mims, it just leaves Sutton with a much lower expected target share. And like, I don't see a world where he's completely useless in fantasy. Like, I don't think it's in his range of outcomes where we're like, oh man, he's a wide receiver 70, right? He's still going to be the best wide receiver on this team, and it's still going to be a good team. But he was awesome last year, and he was a wide receiver 25 in points per game. Take away 1 catch per game, only 1 per game from last season, he drops down to 40th in points per game. I think it's a lot more likely that he's going to lose a reception per game than gain a reception per game. And when players will at best return value, it makes it not all that risky to fade them. I'm attacking Denver this season through RJ Harvey, Evan Ingram, and Bo Nix, not the wide receivers, unless you want to take a late round dart throw on Pat Bryant. Next up, we've got Garrett Wilson, currently the wide receiver 13 by ADP, my wide receiver 18 right now. I'm just really nervous about this Jets offense. Justin Fields' best season ever was 197 passing yards per game. He's never thrown for more than 17 touchdowns in a season. You all know I love Garrett Wilson as a player, but in terms of production, he's been the wide receiver 31, 40, and 23 in points per game, despite finishing 7th, 4th, and 4th in targets. And that's my concern. He's being drafted well above his best season ever, and it's not like the targets are going up. If anything, they are going down. I mean, even take last season, 4th among wide receivers in targets, 65.6% catch rate, 7.2 yards per target, 7 touchdowns. Okay, those are pretty good numbers. Fields' completion percentage in his career is well below that mark. He's never hit that mark in terms of yards per pass attempt. Again, doesn't throw for that many touchdowns. Yet again, the market is expecting him to by far have the best season of his career. If you want any sort of return on your pick there, he's going to need to finish even higher than the wide receiver 13 in points per game. That's just asking a lot. I know a ton of people are just saying, well, what if he is 2023 DJ Moore? And maybe that happens, but I think people also forget that Moore had plenty of down games in that season. His total from the year looks really good, but that's thanks to one nuke in week 5. He had 230 yards and 3 touchdowns because the Commanders just forgot how to tackle in that game. I think people are kind of overlooking the 9 games DJ Moore had in that season with less than 65 yards and 0 touchdowns. He was a wide receiver 22 in points per game from week 6 on after that one nuke. Again, I think Garrett Wilson is an awesome wide receiver that's clearly going to be their one and going to command plenty of targets. But he's done that throughout his career, and he's never come close to returning what it takes to get him in drafts right now. You're asking a lot for someone to need by far the best season of their career, just return value. You're asking a lot for him to do that. Next up, Brian Robinson Jr., currently coming off the board as the running back 28. He's my running back 31. Last season, he was drafted as the running back 31, finished 29th overall, 28th in points per game. As we've discussed at length, though, league winners are truly all that matter. You're not looking for a bunch of players that are going to slightly outperform their mid-round ADP because that doesn't really do anything for you. Even outperforming his ADP by a little bit last season, teams that drafted Brian Robinson Jr. last year made the playoffs and won their championship at a lower rate than average. And that's because he has no weekly ceiling whatsoever. He has maxed out at 18.8 fantasy points. He scored over 14.1 only 3 times. Most weeks in general, you're going to need 15 to 16 half PPR points to finish as just a low-end running back 1 and to truly make any sort of difference to a starting lineup. You know how many times in his career Brian Robinson Jr. has hit 15 fantasy points, which again is not that high of a mark? 7 times in 41 career games. So about 2 to 3 times a season, you're going to get low-end running back 1 production, and the rest of the time, you're going to get pretty replaceable production. I know people tend to like him because they value stability, they value just stable production at running back 2, but I need you to understand that that's not what you should be looking out for. I don't want consistent running back 3 numbers at the running back 2 spot. And I'm certainly not putting a 0 ceiling player in the flex spot. That's a spot that should have a lot more variance, a lot more upside. Again, he outperformed his ADP as the running back 31 by a little bit last season and was still a net negative if you drafted him. So in a year where, the rookie running back class is insane, we're going to now take him earlier than last season. That just doesn't make any sense to me. He just is coming off a year where he played well, but he hurt teams that drafted him, continued to have no ceiling. Running back depth is now the best it's been in years, so let's move him up by ADP. I don't get it. I'm out on his ADP right now. Kyren Williams up next, running back 12 by ADP, running back 14 in my rankings. And to be honest, this is more of a discussion. This is one where I want to know your thoughts on Kyren Williams. I'm just going to kind of say everything that I'm feeling right now because I haven't totally figured it out. Again, my lean right now is you should be fading him, and that's what we're kind of go over in this video. But I can see the other arguments, so I want to know what you guys think as well. But on the one hand, the positive, right, is obvious. He's been great last 2 seasons. 2023, he was running back 6 overall, 2nd in points per game. Last season, running back 7 overall, 8th in points per game. So that's back-to-back years of, basically mid to high-end running back 1 production. So as the running back 12 by ADP, that is a strong value based on past production, and we know that the strongest indicator of future production is past production. On the other hand, he saw a very sizable drop in efficiency last season. He only gained 4.2 yards per carry, a pathetically low 5.4 yards per reception. He showed zero explosiveness. He only gained 15 or more yards 1.9% of the time. That ranked 44th among 46 qualified running backs last season. Only Kareem Hunt and Gus Edwards were less explosive than Kyren Williams last season. Even Alexander Mattison, even Nick Chubb last year were more explosive. Then you look in the offseason, you hear comments from the GM saying, how much wear and tear goes into playing running back in the NFL, how having a committee in today's NFL of running backs with different skill sets helps the offense run how they'd like all season. So it makes sense that they went out, they drafted Jaquez Hunter. He has 90th percentile speed. He hits that speed quickly. He's at least 10 pounds, probably 15 pounds heavier than Kyren Williams. So he's not like a smaller scat back that is fast. He's bigger than Kyren, also faster than him. Again, I love Kyren. I love the production he's had the last 2 years. I love that McVay trusts him. I like that they have trusted just leaning on him for a ton of touches. And I think he's running back one on this team, and I don't think that's going to change. But I do genuinely believe that the team wants to deploy somewhat more of a committee this season, and that Hunter is a great pure runner, offers just a different style of play at running back than Kyren does, and is a great complement to him. Again, I don't think Hunter is better than Kyren, but I think that he will force somewhat of a split. Not a 50-50 split, but more than Blake Corum did last season. Because remember, Corum last season they drafted as a clone. They wanted someone who was identical as a runner to Kyren. They realized that that was a mistake because all he was doing was handcuffing him in case of an injury. Now they're like, okay, we should actually be having a backup that offers a different skill set. That way we can actually use both of them throughout the game. I think that's what's going to happen. And my concern is that by taking Kyren at the 2-3 turn, you're just taking on a level of risk that what if the touches drop off because the efficiency is not going to be great. He's not a highly efficient player. He had 350 touches last season. Given his general efficiency, if you drop that to 300, which is still a crazy amount of touches for a running back in today's NFL, but you drop it to 300, he drops a lot, right? That makes him more of a low-end running back too, and that's not something you really want at the 2-3 turn in fantasy. So because of that risk, that even a little bit of a drop in this, featured role that Kyren's had these last 2 years, drop that a little bit and the production goes way down because he's not an efficient running back, that concern for me is too high. I would avoid him at the 2-3 turn. But again, love to know your thoughts on that. Sticking with the Rams, on to Adams. Doesn't look like it when you just look at like wide receiver 19 by ADP, wide receiver 20 in my rankings. You're like, Nick, that's pretty much even. But if you drop him 5 half PPR points across the entire season, he'd go down to 26. So it's really just that he's in a range that's very tight for scoring. I just have concerns, and I tend to kind of avoid him in that range. He's entering his 12th season in the NFL. He's turning 33 in December. He's coming off a pretty mediocre year from efficiency standpoint, but what can you really expect when you start the year with the Raiders? You get traded to the Jets mid-season. Like, that's going to happen, right? This season, he signs a 2-year, $44 million deal with the Rams. It's effectively a 1-year, $26 million deal. The cap hit is massive. And the next year, it's probably going to be a situation where they're renting him for a year and then they cut him next offseason. Regardless, though, it's a pretty sizable contract. It's a lot less than DK Metcalf, T. Higgins, and Chris Godwin got this offseason, but it's on par with Stephon Diggs. It's a little bit better than Shakir got as well, just kind of comparing what contracts different wide receivers in this specific offseason have gotten. And of course, everyone's below Jamar Chase as well. My concern is more that we're going to see that steep decline in play, and that, Puka's there. Kyren in the ground game is there. And so even though we have a very condensed offense, we do know the number one is going to be Puka. We do know they're going to utilize the running backs a lot. And so you do reduce the amount, like the cap of what you can actually have at wide receiver 2. And you look at just the difference between these two wide receivers. I mean, yards per route run, first downs per route run. Those are two highly predictive metrics for future success for wide receivers. Last season, Puka was first and second in those metrics. Adams was 31st and 36th. So not bad, but definitely worse than he'd been throughout his career. He stayed really good against man coverage, against press coverage, but he did see drops in both of those success rates. He did see a steep decline in success versus zone coverage. I think it's the perfect landing spot because he doesn't need to be a number one wide receiver, but I think the market is almost like overtaking that into account in a similar way that we did with Allen Robinson when he joined the Rams a couple years ago. I think that it's a great signing just from like a pure football standpoint when you look at it for the Rams. Like from the Rams standpoint as a team, amazing signing. It's going to take a lot of pressure off of Puka. It's going to allow them to move Puka around the formation, get the exact mismatch that they want. Puka is just going to remain one of the most efficient wide receivers in the NFL. And I do think Adams is going to help them win a lot more football games. But for fantasy, I'm just a little worried that as he approaches 33 years old, we just see even more of a decline in play from what we saw last season. And it's not only him. The big part about the Rams and why some of their players have a little bit more risk than you would think is Stafford, right? We have 2 Rams players on this list, not only because I have concerns about the volume each of them could have for where you have to draft them, because you have to draft Adams in round 3, but Stafford's also 37 years old this year. His play could drop off. He gets injured. Like either of those 2 things happen, it's going to tank, absolutely nuke the value of both Kyren and Adams. And so it's just added risk that I just don't want to be taking when I look at the players around them and I see, similar floors, similar ceilings, but a lot less risk, just like knowing that the production is locked in there. I'm just a little bit more hesitant with these 2. I didn't think that it'd be so off of Rams players because we love the Rams offense in general. But again, I just think the market has really factored in how condensed this offense is, how good the coaching is, to a point where like Puka is the focal point of the offense. I'm cool taking a flyer. So obviously, again, I'm good drafting Puka. I'm cool taking a flyer on Hunter later on. I don't know. Kyren and Adams are just worrying me a little bit right now. There's so many amazing players still on the board in this range. I would rather pass on these 2, avoid the risk, draft some other guys. So those are 5 players I think you'll regret drafting. But if you think you can come up with a better list, prove it. Download my app for free. Set your top players you'll be avoiding in your profile. We're going to have a competition this year to see who can make the best must draft list, sleeper list, and avoid list. There will be prizes. I don't know what they're going to be yet, but there will be something. Just sort of a fun competition we're going to have. So again, download my app for free. Link to that in the description box down below. That'll do it for this one though. Thank you all for watching. Please leave a like if you watched this far. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new here. And I'll see you all on Monday for another episode of Mock Draft Monday.